Anyone feel really small after that first reading? Hearing that great long list of Bible heroes, it's a bit like the opening credits to one of those Marvel movies. You know, the ones, the superhero films where you see all the really cool bits in a few little snapshots. I don't know about you, but I love going to the cinema and watching the trailers. We always make sure we don't miss them. We always turn up early with our popcorn and our drinks and our snacks because we don't want to miss these glimpses of other films that might be even cooler than the one we've gone to see. And what we've got in our Hebrews reading is a bit like that, but for the Bible, for a whole bunch of stories. People passing through the sea on dry land, people winning battles, people overcoming extraordinary odds, people hanging in there even when life is really difficult. And yeah, listening to some of those stories in the Bible makes me feel about that big. What have I really done with my life in comparison to some of these characters? And then you've got Jesus, who's talking about his mission on earth. I've come to bring fire to the earth. How I wish it were already kindled. I want to get on with it. I want to get it over with. Because he knew he had an ordeal ahead of him. Now, I suspect that all of us have had this experience at one point or another where we've watched a film where the hero is really up against it. Normally happens in the last kind of 20 minutes of a film. You know, the hero is chained to a wall or pinned under a building or trapped somewhere, and everything looks bleak and hopeless and terrible. And as though evil will triumph and good will be crushed. And then somehow miraculously everything is turned around. The hero saves the day and the world is transformed and evil defeated. And so these readings have got overtones of that kind of heroism. Now I wonder if I can get you to think just for a minute. Think back to the last time you had to be brave. The last time in your life when you had to be brave about something. Doesn't necessarily mean saving the world. Might be the last time you had to have an injection at the doctor's. Maybe it might be a scary situation you found yourself in or something that you had to help someone with. Different things scare each of us. But just think back for a moment to a time when you had to be brave. Now we're about to celebrate a baptism in a little while. And a baptism is in many ways a beginning of a journey of faith. And a baptism is also a very brave move. Because in baptism we let go of what's gone before and we look forward to what's ahead of us. In baptism we commit to the adventure of faith, wherever it might take us. And many of our moments of bravery include a moment of faith. If I have to go to the doctors to have an injection, for example, I have to have faith that they know what they're doing. If I get myself into difficulties out on the ocean, I need a nice experienced Coast Guard to come along and pull me off my floating inflatable and take me back into shore. No, that's not happened to me, but I know people it has. If I get involved in whatever disasters or difficulties there are in the world, there are always people to help, aren't there? And there's that wonderful Mr. Rogers quote, when all seems to be chaos in the world, look for the helpers. Look for the people who are helping to make things better. There are always helpers for us, but we don't always feel that straight away. There are times in situations where we have to be brave, where we feel all alone and all by ourselves. But the Bible tells us we're not. We're never alone, And we're never all by ourselves in this journey of faith. So while baptism is a call to a pretty wild adventure, we don't know where our life is going to take us. At the same time, it's also a reassurance and peace, because it's a promise that God will always be with us, no matter where we go in our life. God will always be with us. The reading that we didn't have, our Old Testament reading, I'll leave you to have a look at for yourself. It's on your sheet. Begins with, "Am I a God nearby, says the Lord, and not a God far off? Who can hide in secret places that I cannot see them? Do I not fill heaven and earth?" God is everywhere. You can't get away from God. There's nothing you go through that God doesn't see and isn't with you in. God wraps around us, even though we can't see him or touch him. He's there. Now, when you go to some of the places you have to go to in your life, if you have to go to school for the first time, if you have to go into hospital, sometimes if you have to go on a journey, you can feel alone because you haven't got anybody you know with you. And it can be a scary experience, but God is always there. Always. Always with us. And that's the one thing all these amazing characters from these Bible stories in this film trailer-like summary have in common, is that they did all these extraordinary things because God was with them. Because God gave them the power and the strength and the wisdom to do all these things. Now, when you get baptized, I'm sorry, you don't get superpowers. Not in the sense of Marvel movies. You're not going to start flying or be able to see through walls. Wouldn't it be marvellous if you could? But what you do get is something better. You get a connection to a love that is more powerful than anything, including death. You get a new family, the family of God that spreads throughout the whole world. And you're part of that family of God, and nobody can ever take that away from you. You get to know that God is with you always. And yes, there is miraculous power available, the power of God in us. And I've seen miracles in my lifetime, and I know they're real. And we can pray and we can ask God to help us in life's situations. There is one more thing that's very powerful, and it comes at the end of our Hebrews reading. Therefore, St. Paul says, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let's lay aside every weight and the sin that clings so closely, and let's run with perseverance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith, who for the sake of the joy that was set before him endured the cross. Think about that for a minute. Everyone who's ever lived the life of faith before you, because we're part of a long story, a story that started before we were born and a story that will end long after we're gone. And we are a part of that story. And everyone who's ever gone before is in a great cloud of witnesses. Now, put your hand up if you've ever seen an athletics race or an Olympics competition or a football match, even if it's only on the TV. Put your hand up if you've had that experience. Yeah? Close your eyes for a minute and imagine that crowd. That big, roaring crowd making a huge fuss. We have got in the heavenly places a big, roaring crowd cheering us on. Every step, every breath, every moment of your life. Willing you forward. You in the life of faith. Everyone you've ever loved and don't see any longer. And a whole bunch of people you've not met yet. And God himself cheering you on, willing you on in the race that is life. And that is what you get as you begin your walk of faith in baptism. And we celebrate that, and so as part of what we're going to do in a minute, you'll all be sprinkled with the water from the baptism. And for those of us who are baptized, it's a reminder of our own baptism. And if you've never been baptized, it might be something you might want to think about, to become part of that great story that was before you and will be long after you.